Good evening. Today we're going to be playing Ocarina of Time Master Quest, not to be confused with Ocarina of Time Newbie Quest. You also might notice that something's a little bit different. Just a second, I need all of my brain cells to spell my name. Yeah, so, yeah, Master Quest. I believe this game was never released in the West until the special compilation disc for the GameCube, which I think was like a pre-order reward for Wind Waker. Don't quote me on that. But like that's the only way to get the Master Quest ROM, which I did, and then I put it into Ship of Harkinian, which is a PC recompilation. So you might notice a few things different, graphically and gameplay-wise. And if you're wondering why those are there, it's because it's Ship of Harkinian, not because it's Master Quest. You know, I just had a thought, that's a very pretty horse model. I kinda wish that we could, see it more than once. But yeah, I've done my best to make the, what was I gonna say? Alright, yeah, so Ship of Harkinian lets you edit a lot of things. It like adds a bunch of options that just weren't in the original release. A lot of like modernization, a lot of like quality of life type stuff. For this playthrough, for this Master Quest, I've done my best to try and keep it relatively vanilla plus. Yeah, like I know the Fat Horse didn't come back until like Breath of the Wild. I mean, like, it would have been nice to see more of it in this game. It is such a pretty horse, though. Yeah, like I don't have any like cutscene skips or anything turned on. Vanilla Plus basically means nothing crazy. Like, it's still gonna be the same game. Just like a little bit better without like having been fundamentally like added to or altered. Yeah, like, for example, one of those things would be that I could have actually skipped this cutscene, but this is a playthrough, so I shall include the cutscenes. I will, however, change my outfit from green to pink. Oh, that is actually one quality of life thing. I can hold down B to skip dialogue. Now, my understanding of Master Quest is that it's basically exactly the same as vanilla outside of dungeons. So, like, the story is the same, grottos and everything are the same. But dungeons are going to be much, much harder. So we'll see how that plays out. Also, I've got the game running at 60 FPS, which is nice. When you first played this, you got stuck in the bigotry? Me too. When I was a kid, I didn't realize that you could bonk the grease to destroy them. So I literally got caught on the very first obstacle in the entire game. Anyway, I need the Kokiri sword. And unless I've accidentally set this up as a randomizer, that should be right here. I was worried for a second, not gonna lie. Oh, Jigsaw, congratulations on being first. You remember when you didn't know English for the game was in English? I hear that a lot of people, especially like non-English first language people, but like even like English first language people learn language skills really, really well from games. Like, I had a childhood friend growing up. Kind of the definition, kind of think of it. But anyway, I had a childhood friend when I was a kid where he actually learned how to read in order to play Pokemon. Like, books just bounced off of him, but he was like, oh, I need to learn what these words are so that I can, like, get deeper into this game, and, like, that's what got him reading. I thought that was 20 rupees, I was mistaken. Yeah, English is my first language, so I never really got that experience. Although I have picked up a fair amount of Japanese from, like, manga and anime, so I feel like mine is less impressive. I mostly use it to, like, call people baka for fun, not to, like, make friends. Alright, take a tree. Or, take a shield. That's also another thing that's a slight quality of life upgrade, is I can choose whether or not I want to equip equipment when I pick it up. That's mostly relevant in randomizers. But it is a thing, so... Now I need to remember how to actually play this game. It's been a minute. I still think that it'd be really funny if the whole premise about, like, the curse and everything was just, like, a ruse. It's like, actually, the Deku Tree consumes a child for sustenance every 10 years. And it's whoever is least popular and can be, baited into going inside. Alright, Master Quest. Let's see if I know my stuff at all. I know that Skulltulas won't attack you if you're not moving. So, like, I'm already past the first obstacle. Foreshadowing. Also, I've literally never seen, like, the insides of the Master Quest dungeons. So, like, I'm very much learning this all from scratch, more or less. Okay, so presumably, I need to start a fire. Maybe I start the fire by killing the killing the Skulltula. That was not it. Look, you can see down below. Alright, that's more or less vanilla. Also, I see I didn't have to sneak past the Skulltula. Weasel, yes, Zelda. Wait, I forgot that there's a hole upstairs. Specifically, Ocarina of Time Master Quest. My first time playing Master Quest. I played Zelda before. I played Ocarina before. I've not played Master Quest before. Okay, bye. Yeah, I presume that I'm gonna hit that switch, it's gonna set this on fire, and then I'm gonna have to use a stick. Yeah, and then I'm gonna have to use a Deku stick to carry it down, down to the first floor. Or maybe it just lit everything at once. Nice. Yeah, 60 FPS. I can actually control Link a lot more fluidly. And once I get an item that can actually, like, put me into, like, a first-person aiming mode, it's going to be kind of awesome. You ever played a Zelda game? Interesting. I'm actually slightly envious of you, because you're kind of, like, in the position of being able to play Zelda games for the first time. If you want to, of course. They are very, very fun, in my personal opinion. If you can get your hands on a copy of A Link to the Past, originally for the Super Nintendo, I can highly recommend that one. Yeah, I presume that I've got to kill all the stuff hanging out in here. Also, you might notice in the bottom right corner, there's an autosave. I think it's every 5 minutes. In vanilla, whenever you, like, save and quit and reload, with your child, you end up back in Link's house. But with Ship of Arcadian, you end up in the same scene that you, like, quit out in. So, like, if I save and quit in this room, instead of coming back at the start of the dungeon or at Link's house, I would come back in this room. I also will confess that I have a slight ulterior motive for doing Master Quest. Being that the randomizer for this game, if you have access to... Oh, hey, the slingshot. If you have access to both the, if you have access to both, like, the main game and the Master Quest, you can actually have the randomizer, randomize whether any given dungeon is the normal dungeon or the Master Quest dungeon. So I'm like, oh, well, that could be fun. But to do that, I need to actually know what I'm doing. Therefore... I'm officially now way farther ahead than I ever was as a kid. Oh, you know what? I wonder if I've got to bring the fire from upstairs. Or maybe I just do this. Perhaps I'm simply overthinking things. that's another thing. It's not as, like, visually obvious. But, like, if you've played this game, especially recently, if I pull out an item, I can put it away immediately. I don't have to, like, wait for a few seconds for Link to kind of, like, gather his bearings. Yeah, so fun fact, gyro aiming. The town shooting gallery is not gonna know what hit it. I can actually aim. A notable thing about Master Quest Dungeon is that a lot of the annoying parts of the original dungeons are actually node. What does that mean? Just like more entertaining in general, you think? Okay, I think I need a fire in here. I will carry a fire. Whoops. I will carry a fire across the screen a screen transition. Words, my goodness. So help me. Nice. Okay, this is a room that I already know the solution to. It was explained to me how to do this when I was playing through this normally. Hopefully I won't have too many other instances of that. Turn around, would ya? Be a pal? Alternately. I'm not even playing the original and this is happening. Alright, here we go. I like having an excuse to actually use Thank You Nuts. I feel like all of that swordplay was really cinematic. Like, I feel like that whole sequence looked a lot cooler than the average combat sequence in this game does. Alright, what are we dealing with now? I hear a keys. Is it... Oh, there you are. Sneaky. An attempt was made. Well, this is certainly a room. My first instinct is push the switch, start the fires, and burn them all. But then my mind goes, Ariel, no, that'll set them on fire and then they'll set you on fire. Can I read these? Huh. Oh, golden sculpture up there. I would have to come back to that with the boomerang, I think. The fire keys got you? Yeah, the fire keys tend to get people. They get me an awful lot, too. Hey, can I get this all? No, I can't. I was gonna say, can I get this all done with a single stick? Oh. Oh dear. This one's very large. I believe that's another gold sculpture that I would need the boomerang to get. You see web burning is a mechanic in a lot of games. Are webs flammable? No, they are not actually. Webs are actually more or less fireproof. Rather than catching fire and burning, they will melt under sufficient heat. It's actually kind of fun to, if you like playing Dungeons & Dragons and you're a DM, it's kind of fun to mess with players using that. Because there's actually a spell in D&D called Web that generates webs that are, sticky to trap things. And the spell explicitly says that those webs can catch fire and burn away very easily. So if you want to mess with your players, wait for one of them to play a wizard that knows web, so they get used to the notion of webs being burnable. And then have them fight monster spiders. And then when they try to set fire to it, it's like, yeah, it doesn't work. Yes, silk is from silkworms, which I believe are the I've forgotten the word for it. When, a creature turns into another creature. Metamorphosis. The pre-metamorphosis form of a certain breed of moth. If memory serves. And, specifically, the silk is what they weave to make their cocoons. So, you cultivate these worms until they turn into moths. And then, the leftover cocoons are silk. I think that's how it goes. And part of why it's, such a rare, expensive material is because it's hard to cultivate in quantities. I sure hope it's still 2-3-1. It was not 2-3-1. Playboy the cocoon's alive? Oh no. Okay, so it wasn't 2-3-1. Maybe it's 1-3-2. Nope. Maybe it's 3-1-2. I feel like I probably could have found this out earlier somehow. Yep, I can brute force this. Oh, it is 3-1-2. And I've made it to Queen Goma. Excellent. I was legitimately afraid that I wasn't going to make it this far. There's a person on YouTube who used spider silk to make a guitar string. Does it have the properties that a guitar string needs? I don't actually know what those are. Yeah, like, or, like, its weight and, like, bulk, spider silk is ridiculously strong. The actual best spider silk in the world in terms of sheer strength comes from an African breed called the Darwin's bark spider. Which, among other things, is so venomous, it makes a Black Widow look, not that. The problem is that Darwin's bark spiders only spin silk in incredibly specific environments, so, like, cultivating them in any capacity is very difficult. I really should be blocking it with one of these. Oh well. If you ever found a way to, like, have Darwin's bark spiders feel at home, like, in an arbitrary environment, and then, like, have them spin silk, legitimately, like, that would be, like, a breakthrough. Either somewhere with Black Widows and Brown Recluses. Oh no, I would be terrified. Like, I live somewhere with cockroaches and I'm already upset. It's like, let's not escalate from there, please. You know, the spiders that hang out, like, where I live, avoid humans. Like, if you encounter one, it'll be like, oh crap, and then leave and you won't see it again. And unlike most instances of that, it's actually a good thing. You got venomous snakes in the area? I don't think I've ever actually seen a snake outside of captivity. Like, I'm pretty sure that grass snakes live in this area, I've just never actually seen one. Their auras definitely look different at 60 FPS. You almost got expelled from a daycare as a child? I mean, that's not fair. You were a kid, you couldn't know any better. Like, if you're an adult that works with kids, you kind of have to, you have to be, like, aware of the fact that, like, kids simply haven't had the opportunity to learn things. Charles, enjoy lurking. I still like how they just call them triangles. It's like, ah yes, the sacred triangles. They could have easily come up with like a fancier name for them. But no, just triangles. Can you make a cube? Yeah, can I make a cube out of 3 triangles? No. I think you need 12 triangles to make a cube. Six faces, 2 triangles each. And then the Deku tree died. Was the toad triangle? Fair. I was assuming an equilateral triangle. And by equilateral I mean right triangle. Which is not equilateral. Off to Hyrule we go. I do think it's kind of cool how they use the like popping in as like a lore thing. It's like, yeah, the Kokiri just do that. It's not a hardware limitation. Also, Saria's legs are really, really slender. Like, I just noticed that, but it's... her legs are probably like as thick around as like the handle of the Kokiri sword. Caporia Gaboria. Sure would be funny if he wasn't present, actually. That's another one of the enhancements from Shift of Arcanian, is you can just turn off Caporia Gaboria. Instant 10 out of 10. I shouldn't be too mean to him, he's like a genuinely nice person. He just really likes to yap. Which I suppose I really have no leg to judge on in terms of like judging him for, but... Miss Hydra, thank you. I helped forward and pressed A lot. Alright, there's something important that I gotta do. Vengeance. I can actually aim. It's glorious. I spent like an hour trying to do that the first time. With the N64 controls. Isn't Malon supposed to be here? Or is she not there at night? I may have accidentally skipped Malon. I'm not sure. You're supposed to get caught once. I suppose we'll see if that's true. I know it's faster to, like, walk backwards or sideways. But my heart tells me to roll. Okay, so Talon is there. And unfortunately, I can't kill him. So I guess I do have to get caught. Excuse me, sir, would you please throw me out? Attempted murder is, not that big of a deal, right? And now I have to wait for an entire day for that thing to patch. Oh, yeah, in hindsight, I should have gotten caught on purpose earlier. Oh well. This is fine, I will simply, go to Kakariko for a bit. I fell in. These things happen. So, fun fact, you may or may not know that if you ride the drawbridge up when day turns to night, if you walk across the top of it, there are 3 blue, red rupees. But those red rupees aren't only there at night. You can actually just walk up the chain and jump off to get them. I feel like that's probably, like, decently well known, but it still entertains me quite a lot. You can just do that, they can't stop you. I would go to Lonlon Ranch, except Talon and Malon are not there, so there's really nothing productive to do there. I'm so used to, like, playing the randomizer at this point, I'm just like, oh, I should have, like, the bunny hood on. It's like I don't have that right now. Though in hindsight, I probably should have gone into the Happy Mask shop. Oh well. Now, I like how allegedly I came here in order to pass the time, but time doesn't actually move in Kakariko. Oh, Allie, thank you so much for the headpants, I appreciate them. Happy Mask shop is locked until you open the Death Mountain gate? Gotcha. While I am here, I'm going to get a bottle. Oh, also, one of the things in Shiva Arcanian is you can make it so that nighttime spelljillers are available 24/7. I believe I also could have made it so that I only need 1 Coco to, qualify as having, rescued them. But given that I'm not doing a randomizer, I don't mind doing the whole thing. saying it's no 4 bottles? What do you mean? Like, I'm getting this bottle. I'm just not getting it with only 1 Cuckoo. I have to get all of them, like a normal person. Well, I do obtain Great Post, may as well. I'll grab them whenever I'm passing through the area. Oh, also, another small tweak added by ship is whenever I pick up like a collectible, like a piece of heart or a sculptura, it actually tells me how many of those I've got. It's like I can see at a glance when I've hit a threshold. Okay, so there are 2 left. I know that one's up here. I grabbed the one from the front of the village. I'm gonna be embarrassed if I've forgotten where Kuko is. I think it might be up in front of Uncle's house. Or maybe it's in another crate. Finding the Kukos is part of the master quest, clearly. Challenging even to a veteran. I can also make it so that, picking up a gold sculpture token didn't cause a cutscene. But I'm not quite that starved for seconds. Oh, it literally is just down by the well. Okay. Yes, there's like a non-implemented cutscene for picking up a gold sculpture token from the beta of this game. That just for fun, ship optionally re-implements. Excellent, we got a bottom. I don't have the Song of Storms, so I can't do anything in there. I don't have Zelda's Lullaby, so I can't do what I'd like to do here. I can, however, do this. This child can't stop me. If you try to pull a grave while a child is around in vanilla, he stops you. But an option in Ship of Arcadian is just like, yeah, the child doesn't care anymore. So yeah, free Hylian Shield. The best type of discount, 5-fingered. Or, well... it's less fingers and more a blob. But like, spiritually, it's a 5-finger discount. Yep, there's a heart piece in an unmarked grave alongside a redead. You kill the redhead, it spawns a chest, there's a heart piece inside. Speaking of heart piece, I have unsaved the one Kuko that she managed to hold in place after like 30 seconds of not being observed. Like at a certain point, I think you need to reevaluate your profession. Like if you got a bunch of Kukos in a pen, and then like your job is to like keep them under control, and like 30 seconds later you've lost all but one. But maybe just maybe you're in the wrong career, you know? Like, maybe you leave the chickens to your little sister and you take the cows. Anyway, I think that's everything I can do here for now. I really should have just, like, hung out by Hyrule Castle until it was night, but I felt like coming over here. Thank you for the rotation. I'm rotating around Z, Link is rotating around X. We just need somebody to rotate around Y, and then we've got the trifecta. The real Triforce. It's messing with me just a little bit that Link's lower body is completely immobile when I'm doing this. Imagine the satisfying spine pops, though. Just like crack all of them at once every vertebrae. Like a bendy straw. You just find it preposterously scared that you broke something? Embrace it. I've got like a really stiff back, and like whenever my spine pops, it feels incredible. I rescued the dog, as one does. Well, it's not really rescue so much as brought it home. The dog was just fine. You know, remember which dog it is? When you spawn into the scene, it's always the dog out. It's always the dog that's like behind this stall right here. It's also got like a white coat when everything around it has like a brown coat. So it's pretty easy to make out, actually. I suppose there's no reason to hang out here. Time is moving when I'm in this area. Hey look, it's foreshadowing for the sequel. There's a moon up there. Ow, 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 the bombs. Why? What have I done wrong? I'm innocent, I tell you. Link isn't squeamish about fighting spiders half his size. To be fair, he's a child. Half his size is like 2 feet tall. That's not that big. Alright, sir. You need to wake up. The accident wasn't your fault. It's time to forgive yourself. Golly, this is slow. Hold that thought. Let's just do a little bit of all of this. Anyway. Axe. Actual, like, speedrunners have been, like, finished with the game for the last 40 minutes. Like... I think it's fine. Kingsor has his own category, yeah. There's actually another cheaty thing I can turn on here. Hold on. These under cheats? Maybe some under mini-games. Here we are. You can see the guard's vision. As long as you don't get hit, you're not gonna get caught. Yep, you can skip this entire stealth section. I deliberately chose to leave it on. Alright, this is obtrusive. I don't like it. I'm turning it back off. Yeah, there's a lot of really, really cool stuff in this. Yeah, like, as mentioned, you can actually skip this whole section if you feel so inclined. As always, fun to point out that there's a bunch of, Super Mario 64 portraits over here. And over here, if you cause a ruckus... literally chucks a bomb at you. She sees that I have the spiritual stone of the Kokiri, and she's just like, oh, you're the child from my dream. Yeah, if I could, like, if I could, like, yoink that bomb, and, like, use it to break something, that'd be great. I like how the goddesses look like sports trophies. Or like Oscars. They look like something that somebody would like hold up to celebrate. It's like, why yes, I'll happily take a look at this suspicious man. just realized Ganondorf's mouth is open. Ganondorf is canonically a mouth breather. Which is surprising because his nose is very, very large. You'd think that he'd have clearance. Yeah, it is really cool how, different things either get flattered or kind of cast into an unappealing light when you can see them much, much better. I also never noticed before that Impus got a Tonto. But it's right there. I legitimately never noticed that before. Oh, it's even got like a cool Sheikah eye on it. That's remarkably detailed. I haven't like installed any texture mods or anything. Which I think is actually technically an option. I just haven't actually done it. Anyway, I now have Zelda's Lullaby. I should put this Ocarina onto my items bar, and that's actually another thing that you can do with the Ship of Harkinian, is bind items to the D-pad. You know, technology has very much marched onwards. I like how this house just looks like a bunch of, like, sheet metal bolted together. I never really appreciated that before. Anyway, we're actually gonna take a 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. Now, if memory serves, the thing that was going on in my head was I want to get over here so that I can get the Sun Song. Because the Sun Song is a very useful song to have. Once again, I'm kind of used to randomizers, and actually having Zelda's Lullaby on my first trip to Kakariko. Well, first. Doesn't happen all that often. I still like how it just explodes. It doesn't, like, shift out of the way peacefully. Just boom. If I ever get buried, I want my grave to be explosive. If anybody ever tries to dig me up, they'll find out what I was like in life. There we are. Remake me and put the ashes into a fireworks rocket? Don't do that, because then I would scare dogs, and I don't want to do that. Keep the sun song in your heart. And now I can control what time it is. Not as granularly as I can in Majora's Mask with the tweaks. There's a tweak in Majora's Mask that lets you pick the exact hour that the Song of Double Time drops you off at. But Ocarina doesn't really need that level of granularity, so it's fine. It'll bother you that it's right down up instead of down right up. Down right up is the Song of Soaring. It gets used, don't worry. Why is it not a Hadoken input? If it was a Hadoken input, it would be right down right. You don't think? Dig something up for me, please. Hey, piece of heart, nice. Well, that worked out well. I'm trying to think if there's like anything else in this area that I could be doing right now. I don't think there is. Aside from like maybe finding some bugs to put into my bottle. Excuse me, sir. I have this. I would like to go up the mountain. He's like, hey, you can buy a fireproof shield, and I'm just like, yeah, or I could get one for free from somebody who doesn't need it anymore. Smiley face. It's kind of funny, whenever I'm like plundering a tomb, I feel totally fine. I'm just like, yes, this is adventuring. Whenever I'm robbing a grave, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. It's like past a certain point, I don't actually care that I'm like desecrating the dead. It's like, oh, you're a king from 2,000 years ago, like, your riches are mine. It's like, oh, you're a sweet old lady from last week. I feel bad digging that one up. One of these days I'll get through here without getting gulped by that Goron. At least he didn't send me, like, all the way off. This time. Oh, there's like a... You were learning one of the masks is carved out of a coffin board? Yes, the spooky mask is carved from a plank of wood taken from a coffin. Excuse me, sir. I represent the Hyrulean royal family, and I don't have Saria's song, so I can't cure your depression. Be right back. I will correct this. I don't have the Goron bracelet. Will this work? Will this work? Am I gonna have to take the long way around? I think I might have to take the long way around. Because I'm pretty sure I can't set these things off unless I can pick them. Or I could just cheat. I could make it so that, Actually, no, I don't think that works with bomb flowers. Never mind. It's like the fox trying to get away with the sled. That is such a cute clip. I'm pretty sure Darunia doesn't give me the bracelet until I cure his depression. I'm technically walking away without actually trying it. Did you mention the way? Go ahead. If I don't have to run essentially all the way across the game's map, that'd be great. Is a torch in his room? Not until he's happy. Not even the first time that's happened to me. Oh, never mind. You're right. Sorry. I could have sworn that these didn't light until he was happy. My apologies, I was wrong. It can happen. Not often, but it can happen. I like how Link just entirely of his own volition decides to rotate there. Excellent. Thank you so much. I legitimately did not know that that was a thing. Also, yes, the fox shenaniganery is slightly contagious. It's fine, though. It's nice. Why would you want to cure it? Another seed pouch upgrade. Excellent. And additionally, if I come down here, there's something that I'm notoriously very good at, which is a memory game. Left up A. I did it! Yay. 1 rupee. I could have sworn that there was a piece of heart here. I think you might have to do it twice, I'm not sure. Or maybe it's 3 times? Oh, 5 rupees. Yep, and the 3rd time? Gotcha. I know that they flip away when they're done, so I know that it's not, like, over until they do that. This be looking like a fighting game input. It hit all of these in under a second without accidentally hitting anything else along the way. Shoot. You were doing so well. Unfortunately, my brain's not that big. I was looking off to the side and I wasn't paying attention. This is fine. The fox brain's tail is not used to sitting in one place for this long. Ow, ow, ow. The apples. Oh, thank you for the hydration. Okay, this pattern at least is really easy. There we go. Oh no, there's one more. Oh, we've gone entirely off the rails. Okay, there we go. Excellent. Heart piece. That took some doing. Was the reading sound quieter than usual? Oh, thank you for the head pats. Let me check that. No, the redeem sound should be, Is the radio sound quieter than normal? I haven't fiddled with my volume settings in quite a while. I might have accidentally bumped something. Ah, above us. And he's dead. Those nuts need to have some force behind them to send a child flying back several feet. Like, children aren't that heavy, but they also aren't that light. Hey, how's it going, Saria? Okay, so from this angle, Saria's legs are not as skinny as they once were. If a nut the size of a coconut hit you at that speed, fair enough. Like, I would probably simply die. Like, if it hit me center mass, because I'm completely incapable of dodging, it would cave in my chest cavity. Also, fun fact, there's a hidden grotto right over here in this corner. I think it opens up with Song of Storms. I have no idea how anybody would ever find that without a guide. What I'm saying is I don't have impact-absorbing airbags on my chest cavity. Okay, so like the airbags are here, and then like the sternum down here is like down here outside of like the tracking range. And like that is where you would hit somebody if you were aiming for center mass. What's in the cavern? I believe it's some Deku Scrub merchants. Like, it's nothing super crazy. But it's just kind of interesting that they're there. Fairy fountain? There's a fairy fountain in the middle of the Sacred Forest Grotto. The one that I'm talking about is, like a hidden grotto that you have to open up with a song. I'm pretty sure that's how it is. Again, I might be wrong. I'm humble enough to accept that possibility. Alright, Terenia, I got the cure for depression right here. This isn't so much faster than taking the long way around. Legit? Lost Woods is basically fast travel before you get the warp songs. Yes, when I finish a song, it just knows what the song does. It doesn't go, you played that song. And now I'm very powerful. Canonically. This pod is more powerful than I am. I gotta get out of here. I'm not ready for this. So many bombs, but no bag to hold them. Link to the Past link doesn't actually need a bomb bag. Link to the Past link can just carry bombs from the start of the game, which always amuses me. Alright, time to throw bombs into this thing for an hour until it gives me the heart piece. It would help if I actually threw the bomb flower. Enhanced controls, by the way. That's on me. Total skill issue. I did it! Let me think, is there anything else that I can do here? It's just the bomb flowers. I think there is, but I don't feel like it. Like, I could stop this guy, I think, but... 2 RNG minigames, 1 first try. Yeah, no, 100%. That's just the thing in Shift of Heart King, and you can make it so that you win the random stuff the first time. If I decide to go fishing, it's also not going to take very long, let's just put it that way. Alright, second Master Quest dungeon. Upcoming. I think I missed. Never mind. Get rid of that, and I've done that myself. Yay, heart piece. That was not even a hack, that's just, you can do that in the baseline game. Alright, Master Quest Dungeon number 2. Dodongo's Cavern. So far it looks mostly the same, though there's a palm flower in the middle instead of a Beamos. In fact, there's a lot of Beamos not here, which I appreciate. Not because I dislike Beamos, but because I thought I would have something clever to say. I started the sentence without planning it out ahead of time. I'm guessing dungeon map? Even the official guidebook tells you can just jump down from the top? Nice. Eee, dungeon map. Huh, I see a breakable thing down there. Perhaps I should break that. Things that are breakable should be broken. That is just a gossip stone. Tell me your secrets. It refuses to tell me its secrets. It's like, you're a fox, you're not trustworthy, I can't trust you with my secrets, and I'm just like, foxes are the most trustworthy animals of all. I'm only live streaming. Your secrets are only going to be seen by an audience of arbitrary size. I keep my view count hidden from myself. I don't want to know. I would psych myself out very easily if I didn't. I forgot that I made the climbing speed faster. Alrighty. I'm just gonna get a bomb over there. Yeah, like for me, it's the reason I don't want the view count, it's like twofold. If the view count gets too high, I start to like feel pressure. Like, oh no, there's all these people that like I need to entertain. Oh wait, there's a thing here. That just instantly sends it all the way up. Alright, alright. But if it gets too high, I get into my own head about it. And if it gets too low, I start thinking, oh, people don't like me. Which is obviously not the case, but you know, paranoia is not always rational. I suspect that I can't actually get this over there in time, so I probably have to go up. That's interesting. Yeah, or like the absolute worst thing is if the view count goes up by 1 and then goes down by 1. It's like, oh no, I've ruined my first impression with somebody. Now they will hate me forever. Hey, there's the Vimo statue. Like, I'm joking about it a little bit, but, like, that actually is, like, a thing that crosses my mind when something like that happens, is, oh, like, that was my one chance to get somebody's, like, you know, make a good first impression. And it... what? And it evidently wasn't enough. Hey, there's silver rupees in here, good to know. Yeah, I know that I can set one of these on fire to make it drop, so I probably have to set this on fire, pick it up, and then toss it in there. Not too unreasonable, and I don't have the Song of Time, so I can't do anything here. Conveniently plays Take Who's Thick at the same time. Very kind. Very considerate. Yeah, that's the two that I found already. Yeah, like, obviously, like, intellectually, I know that, like, I'm not for everybody. But, like, emotionally, I'm just like, oh no. It's all my fault. I'm glad that, I'm glad that you appreciate my vibe, though. That makes me happy. You can solve it like this. Apparently, yeah. Hello? Alright. Rude. You grab them from the bottom and slightly shift its placement. Nice. Take a shield, no thank you. It feels weird seeing silver rupees outside of like the Ice Cavern and Gerudo training grounds. Oh, shoot. Alright, let's try this again. Excuse me, sir, would you mind turning around? Thank you. A very trustworthy request. Oh, Dodongos. I wouldn't have expected to find those in Dodongo's Cavern, but here we are. It feels weird not chasing these with the Blast Mask and Majora's Mask for money. You can get the bombs? Yep. Dodongos dislike smoke. I also like how they just got rid of the random statue in here. I think I've soft blocked it. Yeah, I can't push any buttons. I'm just gonna do a little bit of this. Truly, the obstacles in the Master Quest are something to fear. Yeah, thankfully the autosave did save me because I couldn't go into the menu to do a manual save. Goodness, how far back would that have sent me without the autosave? I think that legit would have sent me back to the start of the game because I haven't saved my game once, not manually. That would have been annoying. Oh, and speaking of annoying, I gotta collect all these again. Oh well. It's fine. It wouldn't be an aerial stream if we didn't break the game in at least 3 distinct ways. These things just happen. Speaking of being self-aware, I'm hungry. No doubts, that's the complete plot. Maybe I can, I was gonna say, maybe I can get some food after stream, but then I remembered that I'm an adult. I absolutely can do that. Ow, 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 the apples. Thank you for the food, I appreciate it. Hey, Compass. Yeah, I can just choose to get food whenever I want. It's nice. And we're back up top. Except on a different segment this time. Okay, I feel like they wouldn't have put that there randomly, so I probably need to use it. I like how these are just floating. Like, yeah, live with it. Let's see. Is it gonna stay lit? No, so I've got to pull enough blocks into place to actually get them all in one go. That doesn't seem too unreasonable. Imagine doing this without the improved block push-pull speed. I think this is not lined up with this. Okay, how about over here? Okay, that is perhaps not the solution. I know I literally just said it, but once again, very much appreciating the block push-pull speed tweak. Hello there. I profoundly could not tell you why, but lighting up these blocks reminded me of the Ewok movie. Speaking by my 60 FPS makes it feel like a time lapse. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. It's like traditionally this would have taken 37 minutes. Alright, that's them. But there's also a thing in the middle that I'm kind of interested in setting on fire. Okay, I actually want to... Never mind, it's already on fire. Alright, alright. I was like, I'm gonna be clever and preemptively put a fire over there. But the game was more clever and more preemptively put a fire over there. It's fine, though. Unrelated, but I'm pretty sure that, this PC port has multiplayer support. You might have to mod it in, I'm not sure. But I'm pretty sure it does. And a thought occurs to me that, if you pulled out that block and then pulled it back in while you were in the alcove, that would probably make for like a really nice hiding spot if you were doing hide and seek. I'm the fairy co-op? No, I mean like multiple links in one world. I don't know what I've in the fairy is. Sorry. Let's see. Yeah, like I know that it's a Shield of Arcadian setting, I just don't know what it actually entails. Sorry. How shall I get a flame over there? Presumably I need this one. Wait, can I just do that? Puzzle solving, yay! I don't know why, but I get the impression that I just cheesed something. But I'm not complaining. If it works, it works. Oh, interesting, the Skulltula comes back. I don't think that this Skulltula appreciates me. Alright, I can stun it. There we go. What did that actually accomplish? I'm not sure. Little Babby Dodongos, though. Player 2 controls the fairy that can use C buttons to use items in mess with player 1. Interesting. Like, do the items come out of player 1, or does player 2, like, get their own point of view and they can actually, like, help out? Kind of like the Tingle Tuner from Wind Waker, come to think of it. I'm actually really interested in that now. Oh, this door's open. That wasn't a thing before. And now it no longer is. I do think it's kind of cool that, Gomos get used more than just in the basement of the Deku Tree. It's kind of cool to see them outside that. What have we here? It's a small chest, so it's probably not anything big. Give us 5 rupees. Probably a Deku Shield? That makes sense. I think in vanilla that's a Deku Shield as well, actually. You can, like, restock if you've lost yours. And you didn't want to pay a business scrub. If I could stack these blocks, that'd be one thing. If I had the hook shot, I could get up there. You stay lit. Oh, there was a block here. Well, alright then. Now, if memory serves, the room that I'm more or less in is where you get the bomb bag in vanilla. I wonder if the same will be true in Master Quest. The overall layout has been very similar, just like the puzzles have been more tricky. Hello there, lizard friends. And by friends, I mean... well, I'm about to kill you, so... Granted, whenever I play Helldivers with friends, I kill them, so maybe that's just how I treat friends. Maybe I'm learning something about myself. Well, it's less that I kill them and more that my Arc Dog kills them. And by them, I'm mostly mean Doom Bun. Whenever I play Helldivers, my Arc Dog kills Doom Bun. It's a lot of words to say basically that. Well, that just happened. What? Okay. Well, that... this is fine. Okay, so... there's a gold sculpture over there, but I don't have bombs. So I guess I gotta come back later, when I have bombs. Yeah, things might break if I go fast, but that's not gonna stop me. Oh, hello there. I like how the game's like, no shenanigans, you can't climb up from this one. Rude. Alright, let's try this again. You know, it occurs to me that the Kokiri sword is really, really short, even like by child standards. There was a rock over here at memory serves. Yes, there was. Okay, on the whole, Master Quest hasn't been that difficult. Like, it's definitely a step up, but like, it's very doable. I'm definitely doing way better than I did when I was a child. Zelda 2's sword is definitely one of the swords of all time. Alright, I'm gonna wait for both of these to finish, and then I'm gonna do them both in one trip. Yeah. Also, I like how the lighting in here makes my pink tunic look orange. It's like you've added too much red to it. Stop. There we go. You imagine if I slipped and fell and had to do all that over again? Oh, blue rupee. If memory serves, this is where the bomb bag was in vanilla. It is not present. I'm just gonna have to live with this. Speaking of... Did I miss the bomb bag? Surely not, because if I had, then... Or if it had been a thing, then surely I would have been able to pick it up there. There is that bit down there that I never opened up. Is there anything down there, I guess? Oh, I can get through there with this. Assuming I don't break my knees. You know, map and compass, when they're actually, like, implemented well, very, very good items. Like, people kind of gave me a hard time for, like, not using the map as much in, like, the Game Boy games, but, like, those maps just aren't good, straight up, sorry. Interesting. Is that close enough to blow up that rock? Let's find out. No, it is not. Looks like there's another bomb flower underneath this rock. Excellent. I like how both of your arguments for a map being useful are water temples. It's like, yeah... Yeah, no notes, you're right. Hello, friend. I think you said red potions, so I'm gonna decline. Interesting. I didn't even see that there, I just saw the bombs on the walls and I was just like, I know what I must do. Oh, now we're on the bottom bit of the Lizalfos chamber. Okay, immediately after I turned my nose up at some red potion, I find myself in a situation where I'm thinking to myself, huh, my life's looking kinda low. I'm gonna fall into the lava. Luckily I've got grenades. The great equalizer. There we go. Oh, another one of these. That is a gravestone, what? That's a Poe down there. Okay. You wanna come out of that wall? I'll take that as a no. Well, that wasn't too bad. And I presume that this is going to be the bombs? Excellent. It entertains me a little bit that the bombs were literally right there the whole time. Anyway, we're gonna take another 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. I lost track of time. I think there was either a 7-minute break or a 4-minute break. Either way, I lied and I'm sorry. Anyway, bombs. Imagine making a door where, like, the lock, or rather, the key is explosions. Like, imagine being the contractor that sets that up, and imagine being the person, like, commissioning it. It's like, okay, listen, it's gonna be like a giant dinosaur skull, and to open it up, you gotta set off bombs in the eye sockets. It's like, okay, why? I don't understand the question. I feel like my intentions are self-evident. Also, thank you for the head pats. You're looking at how explosions cause controlled avalanches? Interesting. Oh, hi. And they're dead. Oh, you know what? It's probably like that. Yeah. Oh, I found all the Armo statues from the rest of the dungeon. There have been no explosions in your local mountains? That's probably good news. Generally speaking, explosions are something that you want in, like, other people's mountains, not yours. Leave it for them to clean up. And it's dead. Oh, thank you for the head pats. I appreciate them. I've defeated Poe the Ghost. Sure, I'll catch that in a bottle. You can just take souls home with you. Nobody can stop you. The paladins will try, but I mean, you've got an army of souls. Blue Rupee. It also just occurred to me that, I don't think there was a single small key door in this entire dungeon. Okay, this is actually just every Armo statue. This is lame. Also 60 FPS experience, it's very nice. I highly recommend it. I can also do gyro aim with first-person stuff. Again, highly recommend. I think technically I could also do keyboard and mouse. For like gaming, but I'm already doing most of the stuff in this game with the controllers, so... Let's see what we've got here. Well, that's one way to do it. Yay, bombs. I'll just sneak in here. I sure hope it's not the Infernal Dinosaur King Dodongo. I can handle anything but that. Oh no! Thank you for the rotation. Get bonked, nerd. I keep forgetting that I have to actually hurt Dodongo after doing this to it. Sticks do more damage than the Kokiri Butter Knife, for some reason. Pardon me? Just, And he's dead. And honestly, he probably appreciates it, because, I mean, imagine the life that he must have led before I came in and put him out of his misery. Like, literally, he's trapped in this room, he can't get out. All he can do is just roll around in circles. Eat bomb flowers that give him, like, terrible, terrible indigestion. Heart container, yay! So yeah, Master Quest to Donko Cavern. That was fun. I had fun. I liked that. I thought it was kind of cool how it took me through like a completely different route of the area. Like, I was not expecting to start out by going up. But here we are. And now I've got the Goron's Ruby. And then they summon the other Gorons. So, something about this that kind of, like, entertains me a little bit. So, like, Ocarina of Time, like, canonically doesn't know what a hug is. Because, like, we know from Majora's Mask, when he gets hugged, he doesn't know what's happening. It's like he sees these Gorons coming at him and, like, we're gonna give you a hug, and he's Genuinely got no frame of reference for what that actually means. It's like poor child. Wait, this guy just exploded entirely on his own. You're incredible destroying the Dodongos. I should shoot this thing a couple of times. It still messes with me that you can just, for no really observable reason that I can detect, you can just climb that wall. You hate it when you roll down a mountain and explode on your own. Yeah. Happens to me all the time, exploding. Let me think, while I'm here... Not like here, not Ocarina, or not Kakariko, but like... While I'm between dungeons... I should stop by Lon Lon Ranch and... get a bonus song. Also, I like how there are just randomly, like, re-guides in the middle of Kakariko. Like, they're just there and nobody really knows about or does anything about it. Well, that was something that I shouldn't have done at that point in time. Oh well. And now it is nighttime. Oh, fun fact, because of a bug in vanilla Ocarina of Time, stall children won't spawn if you're close to a river. I think what happens is, like, when you're, like, in Hyrule Field, there's, like, a pointer that's kind of, like, around you, and, it, like, tries to target ground that's near you, and, like, spawn stall children there. But it's, like, offset by the wrong number, so if you're near a river, it goes under the water. And then they can't spawn underwater, so they just don't spawn. Before you just like, I can sense that you don't want me. Also, yeah, like, definitely, like, the Sheikah put those readouts there. Couldn't tell you why, but they definitely did it. I know I blew you up, but I need you. Come here. Actually, that's not entirely true. I gotta buy from this guy first. Every time you kill a small child, they get bigger. Interesting. Also, I like how this guy just jacks his prices up as you buy from him. I also just noticed that, the Cuckoo actually animated when it did the indication that it was now daytime. Oh god, I just realized. Jabu Jabu Master Quest is, like, a thing that I'm going to have to do. I don't know if I have that in me. Anyway, piece of heart. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the start of Jabu Jabu's Valley, and then I'm going to call it for the night. I don't want to go too late tonight. One more token, and then I can go and get my first reward from the House of Skulltula. So, this is actually another cool thing that I can show off about Ship. So, I play Zelda's Lullaby, and the waterfall opens up. The waterfall is going to stay open for the rest of this playthrough. Like, I don't have to sit here and play the song and have it go, oh, you played the song, and then watch the cutscene every single time. It just stays open. It's glorious. And I actually need to get rid of this soul so I can pick up a fish, and there's only one thing to do with souls. He will never see heaven. I got a fish. I also skipped the cutscene where I showed the fish to the camera and triumphantly declared that I got a fish. Excuse me, sir, can I have a scale? Imagine if Child Link, hit the water, broke his neck. You think the Soras would be like, oh no? Or do you think that they'd be like, that's a Kokiri. He's got no parents. Nobody's gonna sue us. There's just an ever-growing pile of dead bodies at the bottom of Zora's fountain. It's like, who are they? The ones that couldn't swim. I just noticed there's a beehive behind King Zora. I could do something like this. Presumably that's going to agitate them and they're going to sting him. Yay, silver scale. With this, I can zip over to Lake Hylia. And I can get my second bottle. It amuses me whenever I do a randomizer and the bottle with Ruto's note in it ends up inside the Zora domain shop. It's like, yeah, King, I know that this is really important to you, but like, you gotta slip me a 50. Or you're never gonna hear from your daughter again. In light of that, surely it's a paltry sum. Right? Excusez-moi, sir. I've got a note from your daughter. And off he goes. It's so much faster. Although part of me kind of wishes that I'd left it at normal speed. There's a non-zero amount of charm in how long it takes that guy to scoot over. How's it going, Jabba Jabba? Another thing that you can do with Ship of Arcanian is make it so that you don't need to feed Jabba Jabba a fish to open him up. But I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. Usually there's a hack that had the normal speed. That's probably doable. And then he slurped us up. That would actually be so scary to experience in real life. I like how there are cows embedded into the wall here. They're like, please kill us. Alright, well. I said that I would call it for the night when I got here. And I got here, so I think I'm gonna call it for the night. Thank you so much for joining me, I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is going to be on Friday. Also, I skipped the "Are you sure you want to save the game" dialogue. Next scheduled stream is on Friday. I don't think I've decided what I'm going to do on Friday just yet. I'm open to suggestions. Next time I'm playing Master Quest is going to be on Wednesday. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful night, and I hope to see you again. Good night.